Okay, welcome back, guys. So we've done Druid, we've done Priest. Now we're on Shaman. So what we're doing is we're looking at why you bring a Shaman to a raid in TBC. What do they bring that's unique from other classes? If you haven't seen the others that I've done of the series so far, obviously feel free to go check them out. I'll put a card up the top to the playlist. You know, there'll probably be a decent watch. There might be something you didn't know or something that you forgot. By all means, you know, I love feedback. So if there's anything that you don't agree with or anything that you think I've missed, just let me know, you know, because it's, you know, a learning curve for all of us. The one thing I will say about Shamans is Ankh. So reincarnate, if you don't know what that is, they can come back from the dead. And for anyone who watches me stream over on Twitch or YouTube, you know that I'm always playing about with a deck of cards. Like literally, whenever I'm not physically playing on my keyboard, I've got a deck of cards in my hand. So I'm going to demonstrate the power of a Shaman with a pack of cards and hope that it works, all right? So just to show you first, you know, they are all completely different. You know, all the cards are different. So what we're going to do is we need a Shaman. We're going to pretend these are all a mix of loads of different classes, but we're looking for a Shaman. So we'll just take a card from the middle. So the Shaman's going to be the 2 of diamonds. So what we're going to say is the Shaman died in a raid. So if I just cut the pack roughly halfway, so the Shaman's lost, potentially forever. Yeah, the Shaman's dead, he's gone. What we want to try and do is bring him back. So we're going to replicate a reincarnate. So he's going to use the reincarnate ability. So if we just take whatever the top card is for now, so 6 of clubs, okay? So we'll go with the 6 of clubs. We need our Shaman back using the 6 of clubs. So we'll pretend that's its ghost. So the 6 of clubs is the Shaman's ghost. Now watch. If we literally just give the ghost, give the ghost a shake, and then the Shaman anks and comes back to life. And the card physically changed. Marvellous. Let's go. Alright guys, so this is an exciting one. Hope you like the intro. Trying to just throw the odd card trick in there. Trying to make it at least WoW themed so, you know, it's entertaining for you and cures my itch for wanting to play with cards. So what we're going to look at, firstly, is the overall Shaman abilities. So what do every Shaman, regardless of what spec they're playing, what do they bring to the raid? So that's what we're going to start with. So there's some that I'm leaving out, obviously. I'm trying to go for ones that are unique or that are just uniquely overpowered. So what I mean by that is, we'll just get into it. So Wind Fury Totem, obviously we're going to talk about that. The majority of this first section is going to be all totems. So summons a Wind Fury Totem with 5 elf at the party. Yeah, the totem enchants all party members' main hand with wind. Each hit has a 20% chance of granting the attack, 1 extra attack with 445 extra attack power. So obviously absolutely amazing for rogues, for warriors, just melee in general. So absolutely amazing. Even if you're not an enhancement shaman or you know, any shaman will be using this, and there'll be a certain amount of totem twisting as well, which we'll get into in a little while. So other sort of unique totems, so these are just the buffs that you bring into your whole party. So 101 healing and spell damage, which is obviously very nice if you're in the caster group. Tremor Totem, so you know, attempts to remove fear, charm and sleep effects, which is really, really nice. So just an overpowered fear ward if you like. Obviously there is still a chance of getting feared because it pulses, but it could pulse directly after a fear has been applied. But really, really nice party-wide. Then you've got Strength of Earth, so just a pretty generic, you know, strength buff for your melee, but still very nice for an Earth Totem. Mana Spring, which is amazing, you know, if you're in the caster group or the healer group, you might be a Resto Shaman in the healer group with a Shadow Priest or something. You know, you're getting all this extra mana per 5, but not just for you, but for the rest of your party as well. Grace of Air Totem, so not one that you're going to use overly large amounts, I wouldn't have thought, because the majority of shamans are going to be asked to use Wind Fury Totem. Now, as long as you're totem twisting, you will use both, you know, saying that. So you'll Wind Fury, and then you'll cancel that and put Grace of Air Totem down, and then when the Wind Fury buff on everybody's about to expire, you'll put Wind Fury Totem down and then back to Grace of Air. There's a macro to handle all that, so it's not overly difficult, you know, to actually do. You'll have to go and find the macro, but yeah, you'll probably be just swapping between this and Wind Fury Totem the majority of the time, but it's not one that you're just going to put down and forget about. Earthbind Totem, I mentioned this because it's really nice for its kiting ability. You know, I know you've got Hunter's Traps and stuff like that, so technically this ain't unique, but it is still very nice. I mean, there's certain trash packs in even Karazhan you might just want to kite around because it just makes it a lot easier. Having a Shaman keeping the totem down is definitely an easy way to do this. And then obviously Heroism and Bloodlust. You know, it weren't going to take long before we got to these. it's really more overpowered. Actually, you would think it'd be better in sort of retail, which it is to a certain extent, because it's raid wide. But then you get the debuff as well, which sated, so you can't sort of pop another one for 5-10 minutes, whatever it is. I've not been on retail for a while. This, you can, in TBC, you can move people around in parties. So obviously the majority of hunters are just bossing DPS meters at the moment. So you could technically have 4 hunters and a shaman. Shaman 1 uses heroism. As soon as it's down, the raid leader will swap Shaman 1 for Shaman 2 into the hunter's party and then pop hero again. So if you want to, if you've got a few shamans, which the majority of people will have a fair few shamans in their group, you can just keep your highest DPS heroismed or bloodlusted for extended periods of time. So really nice. These are the main totems. Now there are another couple. The cleansing totems are nice, poison cleansing and disease cleansing, which works similar to tremor totem. It just pulses every few seconds, trying to cleanse a poison or a disease. The only reason I didn't put it on here, as I say, is because a lot of classes have got dispels, so it's not unique, but it still probably is the most efficient way of dispelling poisons and diseases off your party, to be fair. So yeah, it's just worth a mention, but not actually put it on the slides. Then when we get rid of the totems and we look at some other unique abilities, so reincarnate, like I just used as a poor excuse to do a card trick at the start, allowing you to resurrect yourself upon death with 20% health and mana. Very nice. You can improve it as well in talents, which reduces the cooldown and the amount you come back with. But obviously, yeah, it's very nice. You can potentially save a wipe depending on what your role is as the shaman. And then Earth Shock, again, I thought it was worth mentioning because it's quite an overpowered interrupt, and you can just use rank 1. Rank 1, other than the fact that it does more damage, at rank 8, rank 1 still does exactly the same spell interrupt effect, but at a massive reduction in mana. So having a 6-second cooldown interrupt in your party or raid, that's big, and as I say, definitely worth a mention. Now that's the main overall things. Obviously you do get Purge. Reason I didn't mention Purge is because a priest can dispel as well, and I didn't mention dispel on the priest video, but Purge is very nice. There's a lot of bosses just off the top of my head, like the Romeo and Juliet opera fight, they both get a buff that needs to be dispelled, so you can just purge that off, or a priest can dispel it. It's a good ability, but as I say, I didn't feel it was unique enough to warrant actually sort of being put into this video. But yeah, they're the overall what every shaman gets. Now this bit's going to be quite quick. I think it's going to be quite a quick video overall, to be fair. So if we then start looking at enhancement, there's only really 2 things to talk about here. So Unleash Rage being the first, so causes your critical hits with melee attacks to increase all parties' melee attack power by 10%. If within 20 yards of the shaman. Now this is obviously really nice. 10% melee attack power buff. The shaman is going to be critting often enough to keep this up 100% of the time if they're in reasonable gear. Not even got to be great gear, just reasonable. So putting these in with your rogues and warriors is absolutely amazing. Really good reason to bring an enhancement shaman to the group. I've put Stormstrike here. Now, at first glance, you're looking at Stormstrike, and it's like, well, yeah, next 2 sources of nature damage dealt to the target increased by 20%. And part of the enhancement shaman's rotation is to Earth Shock on cooldown with Stormstrike up. But an interesting thing, which would actually yield more damage for the raid, is for the Stormstrike charges to be used on an elemental shaman. So if an elemental shaman bangs out a lightning bolt, chain lightning straight after, the actual net gain is going to be far higher by letting your elemental shaman use these storm strikes. Obviously that'll be a bit of communication required between the elemental and enhancement, and the enhancement's going to take a drop in damage, but the raid overall is going to gain more. So it's something worth mentioning. I don't know if people are doing this actively, but I think it's a good idea. If for some reason it's not, as I say, feel free to let me know in the comments, but to me it's a no-brainer. But that's it really when it comes to enhancement, because there's not much that you bring outside of your regular just being a shaman. Obviously you do get different buffs to different totems, so you like improved Wind Fury totem, so an enhancement shaman technically will give more benefit from Wind Fury than any other shaman, but ultimately the totems remain the same. So we've already discussed those. Then for a healer, so for Resto, Chain Heal, this is not Resto specific, obviously, that every shaman's got Chain Heal, but it's massive. It's the reason you bring shamans to raids, other than their heroism and totems. You know, chain heal is really good, and you'll get to a point, a certain gear level, a higher tier level gear I'm talking about, where you'll more or less just chain heal spam exclusively, and not really need to use a lot of other healing abilities. But it is really good. So obviously the heal jumps to other party members. Jump reduces effectiveness of the heal by 50%. Heals a total of 3 targets, so it's great for chain healing into melee, healing the tank primarily, but then it's bouncing to the melee around him, or even 2 tanks that are stacked up on top of each other. You might just alternate chain heal from one to the other. It's really nice, and at high levels of haste, mana per 5, it's a beast. Restorative totems. Now, I said I wasn't going to talk about improving totems, but for healing specifically, you're going to get an extra 25% on your mana spring, or healing stream if you use it, but doubtful. It's mainly going to be mana spring. So getting even more mana per 5 for your entire party, it's just a massive gain, massive gain. Really, again, probably an understated sort of benefit of having a Resto Shaman is the massive mana per 5 that you bring from mana spring. Especially stack it with a Blessing of Wisdom as well. OP. Ancestral healing, again, not unique. But I mentioned it on the priest video because the priest does exactly the same thing. But very nice, 25% armor. If you're giving this to a soft armor capped feral druid, for example, you give feral druids insane amounts of armor from critting them. Obviously, warriors and paladins as well. But I think the biggest net gain from this is when you've got a feral tank. And Earth Shield. Again, probably at first glance, Earth Shield doesn't look like it's something that you would physically take. Go all right. We're taking a Resto Shaman because he's got Earth Shield, but there's just a lot of encounters where it can actually be really, really useful. So an example would be Illhoof. I'd say Illhoof in Karazhan, where you're not actually Earth Shielding the tank, you're Earth Shielding with the Warlock who's just stood there spamming Seed of Corruption. So it's they're getting healed when they're getting hit, and they're taking less spellcast pushback, so now they can get the Seed of Corruptions out quicker. It's also probably useful for the Mage tank on Hiking Mulgar. There'll be lots of places where you can find it where you're not just using it on a tank. So yeah, again, it's the final talent of a Resto Shaman build, so I thought it was worth mentioning. Now, finally, as I say, this is we're going to smash through this in fairly quick time. I'll give you some thoughts at the end anyway. Elemental. This is the main reason you take an Elemental, in all fairness, other than their good damage for low levels of gear. So summons a totem, and increases chance to critically hit and hit with spells. So this if you've got an Elemental Shaman in the group, it means you can drop hit rate in as a caster, and still keep your hit cap. But you might you might have gear in your bag where it's got higher crit, higher spell damage, but you're being forced to use a lower item level piece because you don't want to go under the hit cap. So keep it in your bag. If you've got an Elemental Shaman, bang, change that item. It's probably more worthwhile doing that sort of thing in TBC than it is any other time, because you might not be a Draenei either, but now all of a sudden you've got a Draenei Shaman in the party who's giving you 4% hit. Why would you want to waste that 4% hit? You might as well have sort of backup pieces of gear that you can swap in, drop in hit rate in to gain crit, or to gain spell power, whatever. I think there's a lot more sort of clever itemization you can do in TBC because of all these group-wide buffs. Other than that, Elemental, they do really good damage with low levels of gear, and I mean, like, hitting 1k DPS on an Elemental Shaman in greens is totally possible. I mean, you can see in the video that's playing at the top, some examples of the juiciness of crits. What a bad time to say that as he died. Shout out to Deacon, thanks for this footage as well, by the way, of your Shaman. Much respect, my friend. So, my views on bringing Shamans to groups. Absolutely, they're going to be massively required, and probably more required as the content gets more difficult, because just moving Shamans around to give your top DPS heroism, is a no-brainer. And the fact that Resto Shamans do well, they do really good healing. You could drop, if you've got six to 8 healers. Well, let's say you've got 6. Let's go bare minimum. You've got 6 healers. Get a priest in there for circular healing, or maybe 2. Get a holy paladin in there for big heals, and then forget everything else and just get Shamans. Because, you're going to get, as long as they can put out the same amount of healing as the other healing classes or more, which in most cases they probably will do more, they bring Mana Tide Totem, which I didn't mention as part of Resto either, actually. So Mana Tide Totem obviously restores massive amounts of mana to your party. You're going to get that for your healers. You're going to get the ability for them to ank so they can come back if times get hard. You can swap them in and out for heroisms. You've got all these choices of totems and getting as many sort of totems in each different party as possible. They're going to be a well sought after class. So if you plan on going Shaman, you're going to be in a very good place without a shadow of a doubt. Enhancement, not so great. They do reasonable numbers and they bring a good buff. More gear dependent, I would say, especially when it comes to weapons. They're going to be more reliable on gear than an elemental shaman. So if you're wanting to do good numbers straight away, as soon as you've dinged 70, you probably want to gear as elemental on your way from 60 to 70, and potentially stay elemental for a good 3-4 weeks. Maybe until you get your blacksmithing weapons for enhancement or something like that. That would be my recommendation anyway. Resto's banging, obviously we know, and elemental. The good thing about them as well, about elemental and enhancement, they just need practically no hit rating, because you get so much hit from talents. And if you're going totem twisting, like I've already briefly explained what totem twisting is, you're going to go down into the resto tree rather than, like if you was enhancement, you'd go enhancement resto rather than enhancement elemental at low levels of gear, so you get a hit and you can totem twist. Same applies for elemental, going ele resto. And then you've got the ability as a DPS just to do some backup heals. If everything starts going wrong, you can chug a mana potion if you're struggling, and then just start spamming some chain heals around. You're going to have decent amounts of healing because of your plus damage gear, so you can be a good backup healer. And as I say, the ability to ank is just amazing. If you die to something stupid, alright, you probably shouldn't, but at least you can get back up. You're going to get up with 20% mana at least, and then just be able to start just pumping some damage again. So, there's lots of reasons to take a shaman. I can't even think of a downside. Literally, I couldn't give you any negative reason not to play a shaman. Their DPS does good, their healing does good, you bring lots of stuff, more stuff than most. So, if you're a shaman, you're going to be happy and you're going to be in a good place. Hopefully you found that reasonably useful. I appreciate it shorter than the other two, but there was less to talk about. The main chunk of this video was just all about totems, and I could have probably spoke about totems a lot more than I did, to be fair. So if you did enjoy it, make sure you like, subscribe, check out the giveaway. So just for those who haven't seen a giveaway before or can't be bothered to go and look, the 1K giveaway is already gone, obviously. I actually gave it away to 2 different people. So 2 people got 3 months game time each. And the 5K giveaway is going to be 6 months game time. So, or an Amazon voucher of equal value. So, hit that subscribe button to be in a chance, to get yourself something for free. Why wouldn't you want to? You've got to press one button. So, nice one. Catch me on Twitch, Scottejaye87. Catch me streaming live on YouTube every night as well. And take it easy, and I'll see you on the next one.